Well, the events of January 6th were really devastating for our entire nation. I don't think any of us could have fully expected what happened that night, that there would be a domestic terrorist attack on the citadel of our democracy right there in the Congress, trying to back up this big lie that had been proven in court case after court case to be fabricated, that there was no stolen election. We just had someone in office that wasn't good at losing. And unfortunately, our member of Congress not only helped to encourage that false narrative of a stolen election, he took it so far as to have to be separated by colleagues on the House floor that night because he was ready to throw a punch against a Democrat that he was in a disagreement with. And that contrast for me was jarring. I've spent the last 4 years leading a nonprofit organization called Soul Force Politics, whose primary purpose is about transcending the political divide and understanding how we can come into deeper connection with each other again to solve some of our great challenges that exist in our communities in our country, but by working together. And I'm being represented in Congress by someone who has no ability to control their emotional response, that they're going to fight with someone in a physical altercation on this sacred house floor that had just been under a domestic terror attack. We were needing leadership that called us to healing in that moment, not further division. And in that moment, I found myself waking up almost like a hibernating bear that was realizing that it was time for me to reemerge and that there had been a line crossed, that I wasn't okay just letting that one pass. And my wife and I had a really important conversation about how our lives would be turned upside down in making this decision. But we both agreed that I have a certain skill set that meets the very important moment that we're in. And I'm very enthusiastic about jumping in this race, not only so that we can replace the congressman that we have with dignified leadership, but to bring bold and fearless ideas that I have always been known for in my legislative past to the table on addressing some of the big issues and challenges that face us as a community here in the 1st District. Yeah, I'm talking with people in every part of this district, and there are America in miniature you will always find in Maryland, and I think even within the 1st District there's a lot of that. You can meet all kinds of people, from farmers and watermen to factory workers, essential workers, retirees. There's a whole college students. There's a whole range of beliefs and value systems, but it really all comes back to we care about the same things ultimately. And it's important for us to have a chance to explore a common connection that transcends what party are you from. I don't really think that party politics at the end of the day matters. Like, okay, we're asked to declare what party we're from and where our values are, and in the past that's been a certain gauge of something, but I don't know anymore what the Republican Party means. And I hear from others the same concern that the party has left them in many ways. And those are the Republicans and independents that we're having great success in bringing our way in this campaign. Will there be some people that we can never reach? Absolutely. If you're deeply entrenched in QAnon conspiracy theories, there may be nothing I can say that will bridge that divide. But I at least come to the conversation with respect instead of ridicule, an ability to listen with authentic curiosity about why someone believes the way they do. Just because I don't share your belief doesn't mean that I think you're stupid for what you believe. Let's talk about it. Help me see. And in having that dialogue with someone with curiosity, that's where That's where the moment is alive. That's where possibility is. And when someone can tell that you earnestly are interested in understanding what they think and believe and why, and you're not just looking to bring your talking point in, and you're not just having a debate and I'm going to convince you that my position's the right way, there is so much more room for connection and understanding in that approach. And that's just how I've always approached the work that I've done. It's part of the reason why I was known to reach across the aisle to great success when I was in the legislature in Annapolis. One of our greatest bipartisan achievements was I reached out to work with the head of the Tea Party caucus and the pro-life caucus. At the time, Delegate Mike Smeagol, a libertarian a Republican from Cecil County. He and I sat down to talk about a proposal that I had. We were already friends. I worked to always have friendships outside of that partisan divide. And so I sat down with him one day and I said, Mike, I have a piece of legislation I'd like to work on with you that will lower the abortion rate and improve maternal and child health outcomes. He said, well, I'm certainly interested, but I'm going to guess there's a catch. What is it? And I said, it has to do with family planning services. We have been conditioned through partisan politics that Republicans don't support this and Democrats do. And that is a false binary, because when we actually give women access to free family planning services, we lower unwanted pregnancies and drop the abortion rate dramatically. So by expanding this coverage, we get more federal matching dollars. It's good for our state budget. We lower the abortion rate. And when women have access to good maternal and child health care in the beginnings of their pregnancies, we're having better childbirth outcomes, and we can lower the infant mortality rate. And so you had this odd couple in Annapolis of Mike Smeagol and Heather Mizeur coming together to pass and push through legislation called the Family Planning Expansion Act in order to achieve this great goal. And that is how we work through the divide. That is how we make common connections and looking for the things that really do unite us instead of separate us. We do need to get back to some of the basic skills of remembering how to have dialogue with each other, even when we disagree. I've even done that with Andy Harris. I, through my Soul Force Politics organization, sat down with him in 2017 to have a conversation about guns and to show that we weren't as far apart as people would maybe presume, and that we could have a civil dialogue about a challenging topic like that. And it's a beautiful conversation. I had some people reach out to me after that podcast came out that were upset and said, you made Andy Harris look like a human being for the first time ever. And I love to hate him, but I actually found myself liking him in your conversation. And I said, good, I want you to like him. I don't want us to carry such anger in our hearts against public officials, and when we encourage them to live up to their highest self, then maybe we can have some hopes for better representation. Now, where we part ways is after having this beautiful dialogue, the congressman did nothing with the 7 to 10 topics where we found consensus to try to actually move the needle on an issue that goes nowhere. It is possible to support the Second Amendment, believe that hunters and anyone who wants to have legal access to a firearm can do that while also having some regulations in place to keep it out of the hands of those who would cause us harm. You can have both things. You can propose both things, and yet we get caught in this conversation and debate that somehow presumes that when we want to have guns stay out of the hands of people who would cause us harm, that you're somehow against people owning firearms. And that's just a false narrative. That's not true. And in the conversation with Congressman Harris, we came up with a whole host of, like I said, 7 to 10 different policy areas They're small in comparison to the larger questions that tend to cause deeper debate, but it's a place to start. And if you really care about moving an issue, you start with where you can find consensus and do your level best to make some movement happen so that we can get at this scourge of violence that we're experiencing in our communities. It's just that we haven't built trust with each other in these dialogues. And that's some of what I attempt to do in that podcast and in the work at Soul Force Politics. And in many ways, what I'm now elevating to a platform of a congressional campaign is that we can do this differently. We can talk about these issues differently. We can build trust with each other again. And we can create movement on things that have seemed impossible to change by coming together and being more open and curious about where the other person is coming from.